Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UE's horizon, watching the stars through the main view screen. His ship had been exploring space beyond Proxima Centauri for 3 months now. The crew was getting tired, but Jake knew they were making history. No human had ever traveled this far from Earth before. "Captain, we're picking up something strange on the sensors," said Lieutenant Tony Chun from his station. "It looks like artificial signals coming from the next star system." Jake felt his heart speed up. After decades of searching, had they finally found proof that humans were not alone in the universe? "What kind of signals, Tony?" "They're definitely not natural, sir. The patterns are too organized. It could be alien technology." Dr. Lisa Bennett, the ship's science officer, looked up from her computer. "Captain, if these are really alien signals, we need to be very careful. We have no idea what we might be dealing with." Jake nodded. Lisa was right to be cautious, but this was the moment humanity had been waiting for. "Set course for the source of those signals, but keep our weapons powered down and transmit on all frequencies that we come in peace." The horizon moved slowly toward the unknown signals. As they got closer, the ship's computers began picking up more details. What they found made everyone on the bridge stop and stare. "Captain," whispered Tony, "there are ships out there, lots of them." On the view screen, Jake could see a fleet of vessels unlike anything humans had ever built. The ships were smooth and curved, made of materials that seemed to shine with their own light. Some were as big as city blocks, while others were smaller but moved with incredible grace. "They're beautiful," said Lisa softly. Before Jake could respond, the communication console started beeping. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," reported Communications Officer Ryan Clark. "It's coming from the alien fleet. Put it on screen." The view screen changed to show the interior of an alien ship. Jake found himself looking at a creature that was clearly intelligent, but completely unlike any human. The being was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large eyes that seemed to glow. When it spoke, the ship's computer translated its words into English. "Greetings, unknown vessel. I am Supreme Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Patrol Fleet. You have entered our space. Please identify yourselves." Jake stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We come from the planet Earth and mean no harm. This is humanity's first contact with alien life." The alien's expression changed slightly. Jake wasn't sure if that was good or bad. "Earth?" said Zethkar. "Computer, search database for planetary classification of Earth." There was a pause. Jake watched as other aliens moved around in the background of the transmission. He could see at least 2 different species. One looked similar to Zethkar, but with green skin instead of blue. Another was more insect-like, with multiple arms and compound eyes. "Commander," said one of the other aliens, "the database shows Earth as a Class 12 death world. Extreme gravity, toxic atmosphere, dangerous weather patterns, and hostile native life forms. It is marked as unsuitable for colonization by any civilized species." Jake felt confused. Earth was dangerous? Sure, it had storms and wild animals, but humans had lived there for thousands of years. It was their home. Zethkar looked back at the screen with what might have been surprise. "You claim to be from Earth? That is impossible. No intelligent life could develop on such a hostile world." "I assure you, Commander, we are from Earth," Jake replied. "Perhaps we could meet in person to discuss this." The alien paused, then nodded slowly. "Very well. We will send a shuttle to your ship. But be warned, any aggressive action will result in your destruction." The transmission ended. Jake turned to his crew. "Lisa, I want you to prepare a full briefing on Earth and human biology. Ryan, get a security team ready, but make sure they understand we're here to make friends, not enemies." An hour later, Jake waited in the ship's main meeting room with Lisa and Ryan. The alien shuttle had docked, and they were about to make history. The door opened, and 3 aliens entered. The first was Zethkar, just as tall and imposing as he had appeared on screen. The second was one of the green-skinned aliens, introduced as Science Officer Veltar. The third was the insect-like creature, called Warrior Prime Crixthan. "Welcome aboard the Horizon," Jake said, trying to smile in a way that seemed friendly rather than threatening. The aliens looked around the room with obvious interest. Everything about their movements seemed careful and controlled, as if they were afraid of breaking something. "Your ship is crude but functional," observed Veltar. "The gravity here is much higher than standard. How do you function in such conditions?" Jake looked confused. "This is normal gravity for us. Actually, we've reduced it slightly from Earth normal to make it more comfortable for long space flights." The 3 aliens exchanged glances. Crixthan spoke in a voice that sounded like clicking sounds. "You live in gravity that would crush most civilized beings?" "I guess so," Jake said. "We never really thought about it. This is just normal for US." Lisa stepped forward with a data pad. "I've prepared some information about Earth and human biology that might interest you." As she began explaining about Earth's weather, animals, and human history, Jake watched the aliens' reactions. They seemed increasingly disturbed by what they were hearing. "You consume other living organisms?" asked Veltar with obvious disgust. "Well, yes," Lisa said. "Both plants and animals. It's how we get energy to survive." "And your planet has predators that actively hunt other creatures?" "Of course, that's just part of nature." Zethkar was studying a datapad that showed pictures of Earth. "Your oceans contain creatures larger than our ships. Your land masses are covered with organisms designed to kill and consume each other. Your atmosphere would burn the lungs of most species." Jake was starting to realize that what seemed normal to humans was horrifying to these aliens. "Commander, I think there might be some misunderstanding here. Yes, Earth can be challenging, but it's also beautiful. Humans have learned to work with nature, not against it." "Work with nature?" repeated Crixthan. "You mean you fight these monsters daily?" "We don't really think of them as monsters," Jake said. "They're just part of our world." The meeting continued for another hour, but Jake could see it wasn't going well. The aliens seemed unable to understand how humans could not only survive on Earth, but actually enjoy living there. Every explanation only made them more nervous. The breaking point came when Ambassador Kate Williams arrived to join the meeting. She had been preparing in another part of the ship and hurried in to meet their visitors. As she entered, she noticed a beautiful crystal sculpture on the table that the aliens had brought as a gift. "Oh, this is lovely," Kate said, picking up the sculpture to examine it more closely. The 3 aliens immediately stepped back in alarm. Jake realized that what Kate had lifted with one hand was something that had required 2 of the aliens working together to carry ... "How ... whispered Veltar. "That object weighs over 50 standard units." Kate looked confused and gently set the sculpture back down. "I'm sorry, did I do something wrong?" But the damage was done. Jake could see fear in the alien's eyes. Zethkar stood up quickly. "This meeting is concluded. We must return to our ship immediately." "Wait," Jake called out. "Please, let's talk about this." But the aliens were already moving toward the door. "You will remain in this system until we decide what to do about your species," Zethkar said over his shoulder. As the aliens left, Jake felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. Humanity's first contact with alien life had just gone terribly wrong, and he wasn't sure why. Supreme Commander Zethkar stood before the Hegemony High Council on the capital world of Nexus Prime. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of different species, all united under the Hegemony's rule for the past 1,000 years. The air was calm and controlled, just like everything else in their perfect civilization. "Honored council members," Zethkar began, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. I have returned from the outer systems with disturbing news. We have encountered a new species that poses a serious threat to our way of life. Council Speaker Morgan, an elderly being with silver skin and wise eyes, leaned forward. Explain this threat, Commander. Jethkar activated a holographic display that showed images of Earth and humans. Gasps echoed through the chamber as the assembled aliens saw the violent world that had produced humanity. This species calls themselves humans, and they come from a Class 12 death world called Earth. The conditions on their planet would kill most of us within minutes. Yet somehow, they have not only survived, but thrived in this hostile environment. Science Advisor Yelenth, a graceful being with multiple tentacles for arms, studied the data carefully. Commander, these readings must be wrong. No intelligent species could evolve on such a world. The gravity alone is 3 times what most of us can handle. The readings are correct, Jethkar replied grimly. I have seen them with my own eyes. These humans move easily in conditions that would crush our bones. They consume living flesh for nutrition. Their world is filled with predators that hunt and kill without mercy, and the humans have learned to do the same. The chamber erupted in frightened whispers. For 1,000 years, the hegemony had brought peace to the galaxy by controlling dangerous elements. They had learned that primitive species either joined their civilization or were relocated to safe areas where they could not harm others. Council member Trixata, whose species had been among the first to join the hegemony, spoke up. Surely, these humans can be reasoned with? All intelligent species want peace and safety. Jethkar shook his head. I tried to communicate with them, but they do not think like us. When I showed them recordings of their own world's dangers, they seemed proud of it. They spoke of working with nature instead of controlling it. They actually enjoy living in conditions that would terrify us. Far away on Mars, General Marcus Webb was having his own meeting with Earth's military leaders. The Red Planet had become humanity's first real colony, and its defense systems were among the most advanced that humans had built. Sir, we're picking up unusual energy readings near Jupiter, reported Lieutenant Colonel Sandra Price. The patterns don't match any known human technology. Marcus frowned as he studied the data on his screen. After the strange encounter that Captain Morrison had reported, everyone in Earth's military was on high alert. Could it be natural phenomena? Negative, sir. The energy patterns are too regular, and they're moving in formation. I think we're being watched. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon base Alpha, Dr. Amy Foster was making her own disturbing discoveries. As the lead scientist for humanity's early warning systems, she had been studying strange readings that had been appearing near human colonies. Director Johnson, you need to see this, Amy called to her supervisor. She pointed to her computer screen, which showed tiny objects that had been detected near several human ships and stations. Director Bob Johnson looked at the data with concern. What are they? I think they're surveillance devices, Amy said. Someone has been watching us very carefully. The technology is far more advanced than anything we have. Bob felt his stomach tighten. Are you saying we're being spied on by aliens? That's exactly what I'm saying. And based on the number of devices we've detected, they've been doing it for weeks. Back on Nexus Prime, the Hegemony Council was reaching a decision that would change the course of galactic history. The debate had continued for hours, but the conclusion seemed inevitable. These humans represent everything we have worked to eliminate from civilized space, declared war leader Carthox, whose species had been warriors before joining the peaceful hegemony. They are violent, unpredictable, and adapted for destruction. If we allow them to develop interstellar military capabilities, they will become unstoppable. Council Speaker Morden nodded slowly. The evidence is clear. These Deathworlders must be contained before they can threaten galactic peace. We have a duty to protect all civilized species from this danger. The vote was unanimous. The hegemony would act to protect the galaxy from the human threat. Within days, orders went out across hegemony space. War fleets that had not been used in centuries were activated and supplied. The hegemony's military might, designed to maintain peace through overwhelming force, was being prepared for what they believed would be a quick and merciful victory. Admiral Fluxiner, the hegemony's supreme military commander, reviewed the battle plans with his staff. The humans have perhaps 50 ships, most of them designed for exploration and mining. We will deploy 200 warships to ensure a quick victory. Is such force necessary? Asked his aide, Captain Velmer. Surely overwhelming numbers will cause unnecessary destruction. These are Deathworlders, Fluxner replied. They do not think like civilized beings. We must be prepared for savage resistance. Better to use too much force than too little. The hegemony strategists spent weeks studying human history, focusing on every war and conflict they could find in Earth's databases. They saw the violence of human warfare and convinced themselves that all humans were naturally aggressive monsters who would fight to the death. What they failed to understand was the difference between humans fighting each other and humans uniting against a common threat. On Mars, General Marcus Webb was receiving reports that made his blood run cold. How many ships are we talking about, Sandra? Lieutenant Colonel Price checked her readings again. At least 200, sir. They're assembling just outside our solar system. The energy signatures match what we detected from the first contact incident. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Earth's entire space fleet consisted of exploration vessels, mining ships, and a handful of patrol craft. None of them were designed for military combat against advanced alien warships. Sir, said Commander Rick Hayes from the Mars Defense Station, we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. Put it through. The communication system crackled to life, and Zethkar's voice filled the command center. People of Earth, this is Supreme Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Pacification Fleet. You have been identified as a dangerous species that threatens galactic peace. You will surrender immediately and submit to relocation to appropriate habitation zones under our protection. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your primitive civilization. The message repeated several times before ending. Marcus looked around the room at his officers, seeing his own thoughts reflected in their faces. After decades of dreaming about meeting alien civilizations, humanity had instead found enemies who wanted to destroy them. Sir, what are our orders? Asked Rick. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated the communication system that connected to Earth's government. Get me President Helen Carter immediately. We have a situation. Within hours, President Carter was addressing the world from the United Nations headquarters in New York. Her words were carried to every human settlement, from the colonies on Mars to the research stations in the outer system. My fellow humans, she began, her voice steady and strong. Today we learned that we are not alone in the universe. Unfortunately, we also learned that those who found us see us as a threat to be eliminated rather than neighbors to be welcomed. She paused, looking directly into the camera. The alien hegemony has given us a choice. Surrender our freedom and allow ourselves to be relocated like animals, or face destruction. As President of Earth and representative of all humanity, I give them our answer. We will never surrender. We will never submit to alien rule. Earth and all human colonies will defend themselves with every resource at our disposal. The broadcast ended, but its effects rippled across human space immediately. On Mars, miners began converting their equipment into weapons. On the Moon, scientists started working around the clock to develop new technologies. Throughout the asteroid belt, cargo ships began returning to Earth to join the defense. What the hegemony had seen as weakness, humanity's scattered settlements and diverse activities, was actually becoming their greatest strength. Every human colony, every ship, Every station was now part of a single united force. The aliens had made their fatal miscalculation. They had assumed that Deathworlders would fight like the savage beasts they imagined them to be. Instead, they were about to discover what happened when the most adaptable and determined species in the galaxy decided to work together for survival. The first alien attack came at dawn on Earth's eastern hemisphere. Captain Steve Parker was drinking his morning coffee aboard the orbital mining station New Hope when the alarms started screaming. "Captain, we have multiple contacts incoming." "Fast!" shouted his communications officer, Lieutenant Dan Murphy. "They're not broadcasting any identification codes." Steve set down his coffee and moved to the command station. Through the viewport, he could see bright flashes of light as alien weapons struck Earth's orbital platforms. The attack had begun without warning, just as the aliens had promised. "All hands to battle stations," Steve announced over the ship's intercom. "This is not a drill. We are under attack by hostile alien forces." New Hope was a mining vessel designed to break apart asteroids and collect valuable metals. It had never been intended for combat. But as Steve watched the alien ships destroying everything in their path, he made a decision that would change everything. "Dan, contact all the other mining ships in the area. Tell them we're forming a defensive line." "Sir, we don't have any weapons," Dan protested. "We have mining lasers and cargo launchers," Steve replied grimly. Today, they become weapons. Across Earth's orbital space, similar scenes were playing out. The aliens had expected to face a few primitive warships and quickly destroy human resistance. Instead, they found themselves fighting an entire industrial civilization that refused to give up. Engineer Carol Davis was working on the cargo ship Heavy Lifter when the attack began. Her ship was carrying construction materials to the moon, but Carol immediately saw other possibilities for her cargo. "Captain, we've got a hold full of steel beams and construction equipment," she called to her commander. "What if we use the magnetic launchers to fire them at the alien ships?" Captain Jim Foster looked at her with surprise. "Carol, those launchers are designed to move materials slowly and carefully." "Not anymore," Carol said, already running calculations on her computer. "If we modify the power systems and remove the safety controls, we can launch those steel beams fast enough to punch through alien armor." Within hours, Carol's modifications were being copied throughout the human fleet. Mining ships became railgun platforms. Cargo vessels turned into missile launchers. Even passenger ships found ways to fight back. The aliens were getting there. First taste of human adaptability. Supreme Commander Zethkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the battle with growing confusion. His fleet should have swept aside human resistance within minutes. Instead, the fighting had been going on for hours, and he was actually losing ships. "Commander, the humans are using industrial equipment as weapons," reported his tactical officer. "Their attacks are crude but surprisingly effective." "How is this possible?" Zethkar demanded. "Our intelligence reports said they had no military vessels." "They don't, sir. They're converting civilian ships into fighters during the battle. We've never seen anything like it." Dr. Peter Quinn was working frantically in his laboratory on Luna City when he made a discovery that would turn the tide of battle. As Earth's leading expert on human neural systems, he had been studying why human pilots seemed to be outflying alien fighters despite having inferior technology. "It's all about reaction time," he explained to General Marcus Webb over a secure communication link. "Human brains process spatial information differently than alien brains. We can make decisions and react to changing situations almost twice as fast as they can." Marcus felt a spark of hope. "What does that mean for our pilots?" "It means that even though their ships are faster and more advanced, our people can outthink them in combat. We just need to get this information to all our pilots immediately." The word spread quickly through human forces. Pilots who had been feeling outmatched suddenly realized they had an advantage they never knew existed. Human fighters began using tactics that confused and frustrated the alien attackers. Lieutenant Colonel Janet Brooks was leading a desperate boarding action against a damaged hegemony cruiser when she discovered another human advantage. Her team had managed to dock their modified cargo ship against the alien vessel's hull and cut their way inside. The alien crew was waiting for them, expecting a formal military assault. Instead, they met humans who fought with a combination of intelligence, creativity, and sheer determination that they had never encountered before. They keep changing their tactics, one of Janet's Marines, Sergeant Carl Wilson, reported over the radio. Every time the aliens think they know what we're doing, we do something different. The aliens had trained for warfare against other civilized species who followed predictable patterns and formal rules of engagement. Humans fought like the Deathworlders they were, adapting constantly and using every advantage they could find. Janet's team fought their way through the alien ship using human endurance and determination to overcome superior alien technology. When they reached the bridge, they found the alien commander cowering behind his control station. "Please," the alien begged through the translation device. "We surrender. Do not kill us." Janet looked at the terrified alien with surprise. "We're not here to kill you. We're here to stop you from killing us." Word of the successful boarding action spread through both fleets. The aliens began to realize that these Deathworlders were not the mindless savages they had expected. They were intelligent, adaptable, and far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. On Earth, President Helen Carter was coordinating the global defense from a secure bunker beneath the United Nations building. Reports were coming in from all over the planet as humans everywhere joined the fight. "Madam President," reported General Webb, "we're getting reports from the asteroid belt. The mining crews out there have formed their own fleet and are attacking alien supply ships. What about casualties?" Helen asked. "Lower than expected, ma'am. The aliens seem to be having trouble adjusting to our tactics. They keep expecting us to fight like they do, but we don't." The battle raged for 3 days. The aliens had superior technology in numbers, but humans had something they couldn't understand or counter: the ability to adapt and overcome. Under pressure. Captain Steve Parker's mining ship New Hope had been modified so many times during the fighting that it barely resembled its original design. Mining lasers had been turned into beam weapons. Cargo holds had become missile bays. The ship's hull was scarred and damaged, but it was still fighting. "Captain," reported Dan Murphy, "the alien fleet is pulling back. They're regrouping at the edge of the system." Steve looked out at the battlefield, where the wreckage of both human and alien ships drifted among the stars. Humanity had survived the first assault, but he knew this was just the beginning. Admiral Fluxner stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. His mighty fleet, designed to bring quick victory against primitive savages, had been fought to a standstill by converted cargo ships and mining vessels. "Admiral," reported his aide, "we've lost 37 ships." The humans have lost similar numbers, but they're still fighting with the same intensity as when the battle began. "How is this possible?" Fluxner whispered. "They should have broken hours ago. No civilized species fights like this." "Sir, perhaps. That's the problem. These humans aren't civilized by our standards. They're something else entirely." Reports from the boarding actions were the most disturbing of all. Hegemony soldiers, trained and equipped with the finest weapons in the galaxy, were being defeated by humans using improvised tactics and crude equipment. "They fight without fear," reported one surviving soldier. "Even when wounded, they continue to attack. They coordinate without formal communication. They anticipate our moves before we make them. It's like fighting ghosts." The most frightening report came from Science Officer Vel Tar, who had been analyzing human combat performance. "Admiral, these creatures are not just surviving in conditions that should kill them. They're actually performing better under extreme stress. The more dangerous the situation becomes, the more effective they become. Fluxner felt a chill run through his body. The hegemony had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked what they thought were primitive savages, and instead found themselves fighting the most dangerous species in the galaxy. But it was too late to stop now. The attack had begun, and the hegemony's reputation throughout the galaxy depended on victory. They would have to find a way to defeat these impossible Deathworlders, or face the collapse of everything they had built. The war was just beginning, and already the aliens were learning to fear the name human. News of humanity's resistance spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, the enslaved Zephyrians whispered about the Deathworlders who had fought the mighty hegemony to a standstill. In the factory cities of Proxima 3, the oppressed Aquarians shared secret messages about humans who refused to surrender. For the first time in 1,000 years, subject species of the hegemony began to hope. Admiral Tony Rodriguez sat in the Lunar Command Center, surrounded by screens showing the positions of every human ship in the solar system. Earth's moon had become the center of human military operations, and Tony was coordinating defenses that nobody had ever imagined would be needed. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from the outer colonies," announced Captain Beth Collins, his communications officer. "The mining stations near Jupiter have successfully driven off another alien patrol." Tony nodded with satisfaction. The aliens had expected to face a centralized military force that they could defeat with one decisive battle. Instead, they found themselves fighting a war against an entire civilization where every human settlement had become a fortress. "What's our status on the captured alien technology?" Tony asked. Dr. Kevin Thompson, Earth's leading expert on alien systems, looked up from his workstation. "We've made incredible progress, Admiral. The alien computers use completely different logic systems than ours, but we're starting to understand how they work." Kevin had been working without sleep for days, studying the equipment recovered from destroyed alien ships. What he had discovered was both exciting and terrifying. "Admiral, the aliens have been planning this attack for weeks. We've found star charts showing the locations of their military bases, supply routes, and even their home worlds." Tony felt his pulse quicken. "Are you saying we can take the fight to them?" "More than that, sir. We can hit them where they don't expect it. The hegemony has never fought a war where the enemy attacked their territory. They don't even have proper defenses around most of their installations." Meanwhile, on the hegemony world of Nexus Prime, panic was spreading through the government. Council Speaker Morden called an emergency session as reports continued to arrive from the front lines. "The human resistance is inspiring rebellion throughout our empire," reported Intelligence Chief Nexara. 3 different species have declared independence in the past week. Our forces are being attacked by their own former subjects. The hegemony had maintained control through the threat of overwhelming force. But if that force could be defeated by primitive Deathworlders, then perhaps it wasn't so overwhelming after all. "How many ships have we lost?" asked Council Member Trixata. 73 vessels destroyed or captured," Admiral Fluxner replied, his voice heavy with defeat. "The humans have lost similar numbers, but they continue to fight with the same intensity. Our forces are beginning to show signs of fear." Fear was something the hegemony military had never had to deal with before. For centuries, their enemies had been civilized species who surrendered when faced with superior force. Humans simply refused to accept defeat. The tide of war began to turn when Commander Michelle Baker led a daring raid on the alien forward command ship. Her strike force consisted of 6 modified cargo vessels and a converted passenger liner, facing a hegemony heavy cruiser with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight," Michelle told her pilots over the radio. "We're trying to survive and complete the mission." Use every dirty trick you can think of. The human ships approached the alien cruiser from multiple directions, using the wreckage of previous battles as cover. The aliens expected a direct assault and were caught off guard when the humans used stealth and misdirection instead. Michelle's ship, the converted liner Freedom's Call, had been fitted with experimental weapons based on alien technology, but its greatest advantage was its crew of humans who had learned to think like Deathworlders. "They're trying to surround us," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Ray Gibson. "Standard hegemony fleet tactics." "Then let's do something they won't expect," Michelle replied. "All ships, execute Pattern Chaos." Pattern Chaos was a human invention, a combat formation that had no pattern at all. Each ship moved independently, reacting to threats and opportunities as they arose. It was impossible to predict and impossible to counter because it was different every time. The alien commander watched in confusion as human ships seemed to dance around his weapons, striking at weak points and disappearing before he could respond. His advanced targeting systems couldn't lock onto enemies who refused to follow logical flight patterns. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "I don't know, sir. Their movements make no sense. They should be flying into each other, but somehow they're coordinating perfectly without any central command." What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had learned to work together in dangerous situations over millions of years of evolution. They could coordinate complex actions through instinct and intuition, without needing formal commands or communication protocols. Michelle's strike force reached the alien command ship and began their boarding action. The human Marines who cut through the hull were led by Sergeant First Class Linda Foster, a woman who had grown up hunting dangerous animals in the forests of northern Canada. Linda and her team moved through the alien ship like predators stalking prey. They used human senses that had evolved to track dangerous animals and human intelligence that could adapt to any situation. "These corridors are designed for beings who are taller but weaker than us," Linda reported to Michelle. "We can move faster and hit harder than they expect." The alien crew had never faced boarders who could see in the dark, hear approaching enemies through metal walls, and fight effectively in environments that would disable most civilized beings. Human Marines advanced through sections of the ship that had been damaged and filled with toxic gases, areas the aliens had assumed were impassable. When Linda's team reached the ship's bridge, they found something unexpected. The alien commander was trying to destroy his own computer systems rather than let them fall into human hands. "Stop," Linda called out, her weapon trained on the alien. "We don't want to hurt you. We just want the information in those computers." The alien commander, a proud member of the Veltar species, stared at her in amazement. "You're not going to kill me?" "Why would we kill you?" Linda asked, genuinely confused. "The war will end eventually. When it does, we're all going to have to live in the same galaxy." This was perhaps the most shocking thing the aliens had discovered about humans. Despite being called monsters and Deathworlders, despite being attacked without provocation, humans still treated their enemies with a level of mercy that civilized species rarely showed each other. The captured alien command ship provided humanity with intelligence that changed everything. Dr. Kevin Thompson worked with teams of scientists to analyze the alien databases, uncovering the true structure of the hegemony empire. "Admiral Rodriguez, you need to see this," Kevin called excitedly. "The hegemony isn't as strong as we thought. Most of their member species joined because they were afraid, not because they believed in the cause." Tony studied the data with growing amazement. "Are you telling me that their entire empire is held together by fear?" "Exactly. And now that fear is breaking down, reports are coming in from all over hegemony space about rebellions and independence movements. Species that have been subjects for centuries are suddenly remembering what freedom feels like." The war was spreading beyond the solar system, but not in the way the hegemony had planned. Instead of crushing human resistance, their attack had sparked a galactic revolution. On the farming world of Tau Ceti Prime, the peaceful Iberians declared independence and began dismantling hegemony monitoring stations. On the ocean world of Gliese 667cc, the aquatic deep swimmers rose from their underwater cities to reclaim their planet's surface installations. Each act of rebellion weakened the hegemony further and gave humanity new allies in their fight for survival. Supreme Commander Zethkar stood before what remained of the Hegemony High Council, delivering a report that would have been unthinkable just weeks before. Honored Council, I must recommend that we begin negotiations with the humans immediately. Our empire is collapsing, and continued warfare will only accelerate our defeat. Negotiations? Council Speaker Mordun could barely speak the word. With Deathworlders? With the species that has proven they are stronger than us, Zethkar replied quietly. We attacked them believing they were monsters. Instead, we discovered that they are everything we claimed to be, but never were. Protectors of the innocent, defenders of freedom, and guardians of justice. The great hegemony, which had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, was learning what it meant to face true Deathworlders. 6 months after the first alien attack, President Jimmy Turner stood before the newly formed Galactic Council on the space station New Geneva. The war was over, but not in the way anyone had expected. The hegemony empire had collapsed completely. Species after species had declared independence, and many had asked humanity for protection against those who might try to rebuild the old system of fear and control. Representatives of the free galaxy, Jimmy began, his voice carrying to beings from dozens of different worlds. We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals working together for a better future. In the audience, former Supreme Commander Zethkar sat quietly among the hegemony delegation. The proud alien who had once commanded a fleet of 200 ships now led only a small group, asking for forgiveness and protection. The transformation had been remarkable. As human forces had advanced through former hegemony territory, they had not come as destroyers, but as liberators. Every world they reached was given the same choice: join the new Galactic Council as an equal partner, or remain independent with humanity's protection. Most chose to join. Ambassador Susan Wright, Earth's chief diplomat, had spent months working with former hegemony species to create a new system of government. Unlike the old empire, which had been built on fear and control, the Galactic Council was based on cooperation and mutual protection. The most amazing thing, Susan had told President Turner, is how grateful they are just to be treated with respect. The hegemony told them they were being protected, but really they were being controlled. They want to make sure that never happens again. Admiral Tony Rodriguez now commanded the Galactic Defense Fleet, a combined force of human ships and vessels from allied species. The fleet's mission was not conquest, but protection of any species that faced aggression from others. Admiral, reported Captain Beth Collins from the bridge of the flagship Terra Nova, we're receiving a distress call from the Kepler system. Pirates are attacking a Zephyrian colony ship. Tony nodded. Set course for Kepler. All ships, prepare for humanitarian assistance. This had become routine for the Galactic Defense Fleet. Pirates, warlords, and other criminals had tried to take advantage of the hegemony's collapse to prey on peaceful species. They quickly learned of humanity, took its role as protector very seriously. The pirates attacking the Zephyrian colony ship expected an easy target. Instead, they found themselves facing the human strike force that moved with the same deadly efficiency that had defeated the hegemony. But when the pirates surrendered, they discovered something that continued to surprise everyone in the galaxy. Humans were more interested in rehabilitation than revenge. You attacked innocent colonists, Captain Michelle Baker told the captured pirate leader. But you're still intelligent beings with the capacity to choose better. We're offering you a choice. Join a work program to help repair the damage you've done, or be exiled to an uninhabited world where you can't hurt anyone else. Most chose the work program. Word spread quickly through criminal networks that humans were tough enough to catch you, but fair enough to give you a second chance. Crime rates throughout the former hegemony. Space dropped to levels not seen in centuries. Dr. Kevin Thompson had established the Galactic Technology Exchange on Luna, where scientists from dozens of species worked together to solve problems that no single civilization could handle alone. The combination of human adaptability with alien knowledge was producing innovations at an incredible pace. The key breakthrough came when we realized that different species think about problems in completely different ways. Kevin explained to a group of visiting scientists. Humans are good at adapting and improvising. The Veltar are excellent at long-term planning. The Krix then understand complex mathematics that we can barely imagine. When we work together, we can solve almost anything. The research station was developing new medical treatments, improved space travel technology, and even solutions to environmental problems that had plagued some worlds for generations. What had once been a galaxy divided by fear was becoming a community united by hope. On the former hegemony capital world of Nexus Prime, the transformation was most dramatic. The massive government buildings that had once housed the ruling council were now schools and hospitals. The military installations had been converted into research centers and cultural exchanges. Former Council Speaker Mordun worked as a teacher, helping young beings from different species learn to understand each other. I spent centuries believing that control was necessary for peace, he told his students. The humans taught us that cooperation is far more powerful than control. Children from dozens of different species played together in the parks that had once been restricted to government officials. Human children laughed and ran alongside young Veltar, Crixthan, and others, learning that differences in appearance meant nothing compared to shared friendship. But perhaps the most important change was happening in space itself. Captain Jake Morrison, the man who had made first contact with the aliens, now commanded an exploration fleet that included beings from across the galaxy. Captain, reported his science officer, a young Veltar named Nelira, were detecting signals from a previously unknown star system. They appear to be artificial. Jake smiled. Nelira had been assigned to his ship as part of the cultural exchange program, and she had proven to be an excellent officer. Could be another species trying to make contact. Let's go introduce ourselves properly this time. The exploration fleet that approached the new signals was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. Human ships flew alongside Veltar science vessels and Crixthan research platforms. When they made contact with the new species, the message was clear. The galaxy was no longer a place where the strong preyed upon the weak. On Earth, in the same United Nations building where President Helen Carter had once declared humanity's refusal to surrender, children now learned about their place in a galaxy full of friends rather than enemies. The transformation had not been easy. Some former hegemony species had struggled to adapt to freedom after centuries of being controlled. Some humans had difficulty understanding alien ways of thinking. But gradually, patience and understanding had overcome fear and prejudice. Admiral Tony Rodriguez stood in the observation deck of Terra Nova, watching human and alien ships conducting joint training exercises. His thoughts turned to the early days of the war, when humanity had faced destruction and chosen to fight instead. "Admiral," said Captain Beth Collins, joining him at the viewport, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had surrendered when the hegemony first demanded it?" Tony was quiet for a moment, watching a human fighter pilot teaching a young Zephyrian how to handle emergency maneuvers. "I think the galaxy would be a much darker place," he said finally. The hegemony thought they were bringing peace through control. But real peace can only come from freedom and choice. Back on Nexus Prime, in what had once been the hegemony's highest security prison, Former prisoners from dozens of species worked together to build monuments to the victims of the old regime. But these were not monuments to hatred and revenge. They were reminders of the importance of protecting freedom and dignity for all intelligent beings. Zefkar, the former supreme commander who had started the war, worked alongside humans and aliens to build a memorial garden. "I believed we were protecting the galaxy from monsters," he said to a human volunteer working beside him. "Instead, we were the monsters, and you were the protectors we never knew we needed." The volunteer, a young woman named Sarah from Earth's agricultural colonies, smiled at him. "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what we do next." As the years passed, the story of humanity's war against the hegemony became legend throughout the galaxy. But it was not remembered as a story of human conquest or alien defeat. It was remembered as the moment when the galaxy learned that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to protect and the courage to forgive. Children of all species learned that the greatest victory was not defeating your enemies, but turning them into friends. And in schools across the galaxy, teachers told the story of the Deathworlders who had saved civilization not through violence, but through this simple revolutionary idea that all intelligent beings deserved freedom, dignity, and hope. The galaxy had found its guardians at last.